And the goal was really to train, educate, and have interactive, sharing with professional experts about gastronomy, about wine, about everything that's related to cheese, even nutrition. We've worked with some doctors and nutritionists, and 2 years ago, the company who's developed this school of cheese with me decided to import that concept in the UK, and that's why I then changed the cap and got in London, where the weather is not that amazing as South America.
Say you put on your winter clothes.
Exactly.
South America.
But there's that. I think it's a great cheese country. It was great to find the Academy of Cheese as an institution existing already here, which I could join to develop education specifically for professionals through the academy, and meet people like Tracy. Is just you realize that you've made the right choice to move back. So yeah, that's a bit of my background, and I'm happy to as well be part, since I am in the UK, of many different judging events. I think what's really characteristic here is how well managed are the cheese competition. There's many different type of competition. It's really well organized, and it's been a great opportunity for me to discover as well the UK British cheese production and world. So I hope we'll have a great French and British cheese journey tonight.
Yes, no fighting, people, no fighting. So one of the big differences, which we're going to talk about as we taste the cheeses as well, one of the big differences with the French cheese production versus the English cheese production is you have many more protected names of cheeses. So your cheesemakers have to regulate and abide the rules of the PDO, the protected denomination of origin, and whereas our cheesemakers aren't. And so how many French PDOs are there?
So we have in total 45 PDO cheese in France, and France is the second biggest PDO country after Italy. And it's a country that I don't know, just to ask, I think, can we have a sum up if you already have your level 1 of the Academy of Cheese, so I can know more or less if your PDO concept and all that. Yeah. Okay.
Looking at the names, the majority of people I recognise have. I'm not sure. Angus, are you able to?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Next week I start with the 3 weeks. So on Thursday with
Patrick.
No, with Charles. That's right. Yes, with Charles.
Ah, fantastic! Brilliant. You'll be in safe hands.
Yes.
Okay. So you'll know about PDO, but to explain, France is a country where farming has always been very, very strong, and communities have been developed around the farming, and cheese is really linked to an area. When we think about cheese in France, we think about its region, its people, its tradition. So it really goes together, and I think it was the same probably many years ago in the UK, but because of the Milk Marketing Board and the Second World War, I think we lost this specialty cheese, because obviously everything has to be concentrated, and we just kept the biggest cheese, and that's what today the UK has about 10 PDO cheese, which are rather than small production, they are for most of them big production cheese as cheddar, Stilton, etc. And I think we had to wait the late 70s, early 80s to start back to small, specialty cheese production. Whereas in France, during the war, we managed to keep these tradition and to protect what are our PDOs. And this was, it's interesting to know that it's a lot thanks to women that stayed in the farm and that protected the recipes, that maintained the recipes. Yes, absolutely. And
women, hooray!
We've got example of the Epoisses, for example, the fourth generation, Jean Berthaud, who's producing in the fourth generation, remember that her grandma and grand-grandma making the cheese in the farm. And I think, France managed to keep the tradition during the war and survive, whereas in the UK it's got a bit lost, and that's why we have 45 PDO. It's a big amount. It's very spread out all over the country, and really today when you think about French cheese, you think about a region, you think about meadows, you think about mountains. So that's interesting because, yeah.
I mean, we could talk about this. Well, if we started to look at the Baron Bigod and the Brie de Meaux, we could talk further about this, because I think it's very interesting that we have cheesemakers who are named, and they're either named by the dairy or the creamery that they're made, rather than the make or the style of the cheese, which sounds really obvious, but I think that is one of the biggest differences between the two countries and their cheese making.
Yeah,
you've got yours showing. Lovely, beautiful.
Yes, I'm prepared.
So when we talk about the Baron Bigod, which I'm holding up now, this cheese, I'm sure lots of you know about now, is one producer, Johnny Crickmore from Fen Farm in Suffolk, and he had they've been dairy farmers for 3 generations, and he wanted to start selling raw milk, so he decided to go over to France to get some cows that were rich in protein, the milk, Montbéliard herd, and he wanted to take that further by making a Brie de Meaux cheese style. It's none of us are, I think, in the UK, they want to emulate the French cheeses because they have been so good and there's lots of tradition, and then we tend to put our own slant on it. So he is one producer, and we've just got this one producer producing raw milk, animal rennet, Brie de Meaux style cheese. So, but when we talk about, I'm getting cheese all over me now, on my black top, shouldn't have worn black. The Brie de Meaux, you tell us about it, Noemie, the difference.
Yeah. So the difference is that first, Brie de Meaux, it's a big area of 200 kilometers perimeter. It's 7 creameries, more than 150 farms gathering their milk in the PDO area for the Brie de Meaux. So it's much bigger, and it's one of the first PDO developed in the 50s by French people, trying to really protect their tradition. The Brie de Meaux comes from the 13th century. It was made at the beginning in monasteries, and there's a lot in this cheese of being careful with the way you take care of the curd, of the product, because it's a very long process, but you're working with curd, which is it's got a lot of moisture and has to acidify in a long time, and you need to make Brie de Meaux to be very protective of the curd, and to avoid breaking it, because you want a slow and long process of maturation. So that's why we will still do most of the operation by hand, from returning the cheese, ladling the curd will be an operation made by hand. And at the end of the process, then we get a product that's quite firm and homogeneous. So we get a product it's finally getting strong, consistent, but this is with having a very careful manipulation. It's 28 days minimum of maturation to make a Brie de Meaux. And what you want to get is a lactic heart, and you want a development from the rind to the center, to the heart of the maturation. So that's why you've got more of a creamy paste. But I would say the difference with the Baron Bigod is that we're gonna have creamy paste, but not runny. So we wanna keep this firmness and homogeneity. So here, for example, we have a signature of the Brie de Meaux that is hard to imitate, but the Baron Bigod really respecting well the lactic heart and the creaminess. But then we will still find some differences because we are in different region, and we've got different types of cows as well, and that can explain these differences.
What breed of cow is it for Brie de Meaux?
Sorry?
What breed of cow generally is it for the Brie de Meaux in France?
So it's mainly the Prim Holstein, which is the first breeds of cow in France.
Because I think Johnny at Femme Farm with this went for the protein-rich milk, and his cows are out on the grass the majority of the year. So they're obviously they're in Suffolk. It's wet, so the cows would probably drown if he left them out. January time. But
they probably selected as well a cow breed that's rustic and adapted to this area.
The paste was actually, they're looking much more similar colour tonight, but the Baron Bigod was looking very yellow the other day compared to the Brie de Meaux. But it's very, very similar. In terms of what was I going to ask you? Oh yes, Johnny, this is what I absolutely love about the cheese industry, is that we all collaborate. So Johnny went over to France and worked with Brie de Meaux producers. Many of our goat's cheese producers in the UK have gone over to France and worked with them. The Brie de Meaux producers have come over and worked with Johnny, and they've been playing about with starter cultures and with rennets and with temperatures and maturation times, and they all just love it, because at the end of the day they're all cheese geek scientists. That is how lovely the cheese industry is, and why we thought we can actually do this class tonight and compare British and French cheese. How are you finding the flavours tonight? Got cheese to try.
But what's extraordinary at the same time is that, and I think it's why the cheese world is so open and people can share as much information as they want, because you will always have differences. It's not possible to repeat exactly the same cheese in two different areas, because the impact of the geography, of the climate, of all the conditions around the farm and around the creamery will be impacting, and that's why any cheese signature would be different in certain areas.
Yeah. I mean, the Baron Bigod is fresh, it's grassy, it's mushroomy.
Yeah. Farmyardy.
Yeah, and the Brie de Meaux is it's rocking and rolling. It's my husband came home from work and he was like, "What is that smell?"
For me, it's more breathy, it's more garlicky, kind of umami. It's very rich and consistent.
I love that garlicky hints as well, which is whereas this with the Baron Bigod, you've got much more buttery and sort of mushrooms, but fried mushrooms rather than mushrooms picking, growing in the field. It's kind of butter fried mushrooms.
Yeah.
Beautiful. They're both stunning.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have what Noemie's favourite is later.
I will. I don't want any jealous tonight, and just because we're in time of Brexit decisions.
Oh, don't even start.
We go a British and French cheese board. Okay. I'll just give you a few tips for Brie de Meaux cutting and displaying on the cheese board, which is also applicable for the Baron Bigod. The Baron Bigod though is a bit more runny, so recommendation would be to display it with a tasting knife, and some crackers around, so everyone can help themselves. And the Brie de Meaux, because it's a bit more consistent and firmer, the ideal is to use this kind of knife, which is perforated blade, and by having this perforation we don't stick to the paste, so that's very useful if you can get some of these cheese knives. Then there's many different ways to cut the Brie. For me, a very simple and efficient way is to do slices along the wedge. So you're gonna do
from the nose to the rind.
No, yeah, exactly. So you get this, and then I'm going to cut this in small rectangles, and you just display the rectangles one on top of the other. And a good way to pair the Brie is to use here we got strawberry. The dairy notes, the creaminess, and reminds a little bit the crème chantilly and strawberry. It's really simple and nice and elegant pairing for a starch cheese board.
But when cherries are in season, we can have cherries.
Exactly.
My favourite.
Another thing, if you like the savory and sweet mix, is to add as well on top, just to remind the strawberry, some jam, which you can also do with cherry jam.
Very lovely. I love the cherry.
Brie, shall we?
I do have to say that my Brie de Meaux is running, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, but I've had it out for an hour and a half. It's kind of right.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I love it like that. Love it.
I just got mine half an hour ago, so that's why it might get more consistent. But still, if you take Baron Bigod and Brie de Meaux at the same time, Baron Bigod tends to be more runny.
It's slightly high on the salt as well, this batch. Tori is saying to us that she's bought strawberries and Brie de Meaux for this evening for her after dinner treat. Brilliant.
That's perfect. Well done.
Excellent. And so a question for you, and this is probably unanswerable. So why do you think the British cheese makers look at the French styles? I mean, they like to emulate the French cheese styles, but then more often than not, they do a little tweak and they have add a little extra something to it to make it a bit different. So they'll wash it in cider brandy or wash it in something else or wrap
Which
it
I think is very good. Yeah.
Which is great because you guys in France are restricted by those PDOs to keep those, whereas I suppose there's much more freedom. But we were going to talk about that with the crottin, weren't we?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. The only thing I would say is that when you, so first of all, France has developed many different cheese specialty and made them PDO, so made them big production and very known all over the world because they are PDO and they are bigger production than just a one farm production. There are association, cooperative of cheesemakers, so that makes it more accessible all over the world as well. So I think that's why other countries will look at reproducing and trying to make similar style of cheese, and also because again France has got a big variety of climate and area that have allowed during the history to build new cheese families, and throughout the countries, throughout France, you can see every single cheese family. In the mountains, you will have different style of hard cheese, cooked curd. If you go on the meadows, you've got more the soft ripened style. On the West Country, it's much more, we're going to talk about it with the crottin, but it's more for lactic slow coagulation with goat milk. So France has a very good diversity, which is very interesting. And I think some of the cheese style of the cheese family were born in France. So there's a lot of experience, of knowledge, and there's school.
And they've been making them for a long time as well. Well, like Johnny has been making the Baron Bigod since 2013, or he started then and he's been perfecting as he went along. Ian, did you have a question? No.
No,
You're okay. Cool. No. Shall we move on to the? We're going really traditional. Do you want to? Shall we move on to the Roquefort? And Mrs.
Just last thing, because you mentioned the Baron Bigod was about 20 years old. The Brie is 13th century, and the Brie we've just talked about was produced from say about 170 years ago. So that also explains.
Noemie tells me as well, chaps, those of you that have had the honour of judging at some of the cheese competitions, that they have in France awards just for Brie de Meaux.
Yes, that's the funniest ceremony you can attend in your life. Because they do a specific Brie de Meaux comparison. So every Brie de Meaux creamery will bring their selected wheel of Brie to the competition, and
they bring their pegs as well.
almost. But they have like specific costumes and dressings, and at the end they will entronize. They will make member new people that are recognized for having done something special for Brie de Meaux PDO. And at the moment of this entronization, of this celebration, each and every single new member has to swear being a Brie de Meaux lover, basically. So it's really, really funny. Really funny. And
then they start throwing the boxes and.
they
Like
have
crispy.
fat, which is the shape of the Brie de Meaux. Fat. Yeah.
What time of year is that?
Middle ages.
No, but in
When did it happen?
calendar.
It's at the beginning of the spring, so
Okay.
March, April.
I want an invite, please. Right, let's crack on with this blue. Stunning.
All right, yeah, blue. Shall we go?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the Roquefort first, or shall I talk about Mrs. Bells?
Go for Mrs. Bells.
Okay. So once again, Roquefort style cheese, Mrs. Bells Blue, been made since 1997 by Judy Bell, now taken over by her daughters, and Caroline heads up a lot of the cheese production. So it's pure sheep's milk. It's the Lacan breed of sheep, so one breed of sheep. Just absolutely stunning cheese. It's hand salted, handmade, hand ladled. There are lots and lots of points of difference from the Roquefort, but Judy, when she wanted to support the sheep used milk producers, so when she started making this, she wanted to create a cheese that was fantastic, a blue cheese with, and loved Roquefort, and has gone for this style of cheese. It is made with pasteurized milk and with vegetarian rennet, which is a little bit of a swear word in France. So in comparison, tell us about the Roquefort, because you, mine's just running. In fact, I have to show Avril my cheese board, which is at the risk of, Avril sent me a gift because I am now a grandma. I've just poured that all over my
Oh, wow, you've got a special grandma cheese board.
It actually says grandma's cheese on it. I don't know.
Oh, nice.
So I have my
You
own.
should have an apron.
Yeah, I know. So I have my own board, and it's housing the blues tonight. So thank you, Avril. It is absolutely beautiful.
Okay, so breed Roquefort.
Yeah.
Roquefort. You mentioned the breed that Mrs. Bell's she's using. It's the Lacon, which is a breed that was developed in the center of France, in the rock central mountain of France, the Massif Central, where this breed is very well developed. It's a very hostile climate. When I visited the Roquefort Creamery, the cheesemaker told me, I think it's the best description I've had of what is Roquefort and what is a PDO. It's the alchemy between the men and the hostile territory. And this is what Roquefort is, because you have conditions where the weather is very dry in the summer, and hot, and in the winter as well, the conditions are very rustic, and the Lacon breed is very well adapted despite that, and they have also the characteristic of having specific cave, which have been formed naturally by the mountains breaking down and making that like 8 floors underground, you have space for storing cheese. And there's a legend that tells about a shepherd that was working with his cow at the bottom of this mountain, and he decided to rest, and he decided to leave the cheese. To make bread with some fresh cheese on top of it, to have kind of a restoration. And he stopped when he started hearing the voice of a beautiful lady singing a few meters away, and he left everything in the cave. He was in the cave because it was very hot in the summer, so he left everything away, and he ran after after the girl. The legend doesn't tell us about how it went, but what he does tell is that when he went back to the cave, he found back the bread and the fresh cheese, but the fresh cheese had become velvety, bluey, fresh cheese. And they say that it's this love story that is at the origin of the.
So, on the scale of 1 to 10, how far do you think that is true?
I always believe.
Brilliant. And it's the the mold.
Yeah, so basically that's what the legends tell us, that it's from the bread. I think there's truth in this legend, is that it's coincidence. It was not planned. No one planned to make a Roquefort. They casually and coincidentally realized that by developing the bread will grow mold, penicillium mold, and it's this mold that it's still used nowadays, extracted from the bread development, that is spread on the in the curd, so then it can be developed on the cheese. And
both cheeses use the same penicillium roqueforti mold, so Mrs. Bells Blue uses that mold as well.
As well, yeah.
Lots of similarities.
Yeah, an interesting difference between French and blue, French and British blue cheese style is the texture. We've got here 2 different cheeses with very different texture, and it's pretty much to see with the cheese making style. In France, we will do very wet curds, very moistury curds. We do long stirring in the tank, so we can keep all the moisture and have a lot of moisture for the mold to develop. That's what you're showing now.
I'm showing you the Roquefort now. Yes, that's the Roquefort.
And so that will allow to develop, as you can see, big holes. We call it caverns, big holes where the mold will colonize. Whereas in the Shepherd Bell, in the Mrs. Bell, the mold will develop in a pace that's much drier, much firmer. So we'll give.
There's a few bigger holes here, but the majority is much tighter knit. It's a much more solid cheese. I mean, the Roquefort is falling apart in my hands.
Exactly, and that's because in the cheese making process of Mrs. Bell's, there's much more draining. And that will give different style at the end on the palate. One will be much sharper, acidic, much more salty, because you have more moisture, so you'll feel more intensity of the salt in your mouth. Whereas Mrs. Bell's is much softer, sweet, creamier, but with consistency on the palate. So we see that how with the same breed of milk, we can have completely different cheese styles.
Yeah, and it's the terroir of the sheep are bred on is probably a lot less rustic than in the Roquefort region, isn't it?
Yeah, but potentially as well.
When you smell it, it's sweet, sweet, sweet. The Mrs. Bells Blue, I don't know if anybody's managed to get any for tonight. It's not cheap cheese, it's quite expensive. But then Roquefort's expensive. Sheep's milk need more milk to make the cheese.
Exactly. Anyone can tell from the level 1 how many liter can a sheep produce a day?
Depends how hard you squeeze it.
Sorry, say that again, Ian.
It depends how hard you squeeze it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a part.
A lot less than a cow.
Yeah, about 10 times less. It really depends. There's a lot of variability in it, But yeah, we talk about 2 to 3 liters maximum a day for a sheep, whereas a cow will produce till 60 liters for some breeds.
Right.
So I'll just go on with my cheese board. Again, here I'll just display the Roquefort without touching it. So
you did better with them. You did better than me at that because mine broke.
yeah, you have to be very careful. It's the French cheese style.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very friable, very chalky, so you need to be very careful. Whereas with the shepherd Mrs. Bells, you can just use your perforated knife. And a good thing to do is to follow here as well the wedge, and I will do little triangles portions like this that we will display in a stair style.
You do.
A pairing, can you see? Yeah.
Yeah, lift it. You could lift it slightly from behind.
Yeah.
Oh, that's better.
A great pairing recommendation would be honey with blue cheese, which has healthy taste, which has which are charged in salt. It's good to balance it. So I think, and it's even more true for Roquefort. Use a drop of honey on top of the product, and you will create this nice
Salty and sweet. Yeah, the contrast. I actually have had fresh figs from my garden last night, stuffed with the Roquefort, wrapped in prosciutto ham, because I'm not that posh to have Parma ham, and then drizzle of balsamic vinegar, shove them in the oven at high heat, 180 for 10 minutes. The cheese melts into the figs. The fat on the prosciutto ham crisps up, and a sprinkle of fresh mint over the top. It is wonderful. If you like figs, go for it. Yeah. Avril's saying it's figs with the PX sherry as well. But that sweetness of the figs and the saltiness of the blue cheese and the Roquefort and the Mrs. Bell's blue is fantastic. Same as with your honey. Yeah. Wonderful. I'm loving your cheese board.
Yeah, it's getting well. Do we have?
She didn't tell me, guys, that we were having a competition on the cheese board.
Well, you know, I'm competitive. You should have prepared to it.
Right.
If you have any question at all about blue cheese, about cow granite, whatever, beautiful cheese board. Thank you. If you have questions, guys.
Yeah, either ask them in the chat or unmute yourselves, and but we can have a chat at the end, and I can tell you a bit more about what's happening with the academy as well, because we've got lots of exciting things going on.
Yes.
Okay, so nobody's got questions at the moment. What I do love, I have actually managed to go up to Shepherd's Purse before the lockdown when we were up in Harrogate for the judging of Shop of the Year, and they hand sold all of the cheeses. Fantastic, absolutely amazing. It's a medium-sized creamery. They've grown over the years, and they do. I don't know if anybody's tried their Buffalo Blue as well, using buffalo cow's milk, and it's very distinctive flavour. So if you can get hold of that, that is a wonderful cheese as well. Okay, are we going crottin?
Yes. Let me bring you to the West Country of France. Shall we start with that?
Yep, go for it.
So West Country, we're talking about the Atlantic coast of France, and it's still the zone, the area of the Loire Valley, of the it's a very big wine countryside. But at the end of the 18th century, beginning of 19th century, there was a big crisis, a sanitary crisis, but for the grapes, for the wine, which is the phylloxera crisis, where bacteria attacked the grape, and winemakers had to completely clean their land and start the process all over again. So what they did is to bring goats to actually do the process of cleaning the land, because goats are very well adapted and they can feed themselves with pretty much any food on the ground. So at the beginning they were used as like in this aspect, and as the goat production went on, they started to milk the goat and they started to produce cheese with this milk. And the goat milk has a property that's not the case. It's not exactly applicable for milk of cow or sheep milk. The goat milk will have an easy demineralization. And what does it mean? That means that when you coagulate your cheese, when you do your curd, you will, with the help of starters, you will get to a more crumbly texture. That's very, very true with goat milk. You can also do it with milk from cow, but it's much more easy to do with goat. And that's why all the West Country developed different styles of goat milk cheese. And all these styles, there are plenty of different shapes, format. There are pyramidal, there are the crottin, which remind a button shape. There are some logs as well, but they all have the property of being crumbly, chalky paste, and that's really characteristic of the French goat production. Then you have different type of maturation, different style of
rind,
picking and rind, but the goat milk is really central in how the texture is going. So here we've got a crottin. So in that case, I didn't bring up a PDO. I just brought a creamery called Saint-Loup. I think this one you can find it in M&S, for example. Yes, and Saint-Loup is a typical example of not being a PDO, but being kind of an emulation of the PDO. What you were mentioning, Tracy, that's done in the UK, where cheesemaker will try to kind of copy the PDO, but do it a bit different, and that's what was tried to do with the Saint-Loup. And the main difference and the main signature of this cheese is the rind, which is creamy. So normally, and I'll just give an overview of the British cheese that we will also talk about. This one is much more similar to what would be a crottin, where the rind is very thick and the rind is firm. Whereas in the crottin Saint-Loup, what we look for is already in the rind having that creaminess, that softness. So that's something that's so we can do different styles.
Yeah, it's good that it's an experiment, and Saint-Loup is quite a is that quite a big creamery?
It's a big creamery, but it's only one creamery. It's not a PDO. It's
no. Do they make other cheeses other than Saint-Loup?
No, they only do goat cheese, Saint-Loup. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The British crottin. Now, you guys may not have come onto your radar yet. It's fairly new. So, but it's from Rosary Goats Cheeses, who are in where are they? They're in Salisbury. So this one's called Saint Ella. So you'll have seen rosary goats, which is the very, very fresh little buttons, and you could get them. You can get them in lots of delis, but you were being able to get them before lockdown in Sainsbury's and the Bigod and Waitrose, and I think Sainsbury's delisted them. Sadly, a lot of the supermarkets cut down their ranges, which is a real shame. But rosary goat's cheese usually only make the soft, very fresh goat's cheese, and they've just set up a new area to mature and make. This is Saint Ella. So as Noemie said, it's more of a traditional style croton than your croton.
Exactly. That's what interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
but it's definitely got that chalkiness, that very sort of, you can see it's got the chalky paste. What do you think of it? What do you think of it?
I'm really, really fan of it. I really like it. For me, I think in my top 3 French cheese, the croton is definitely into it. And I like the traditional croton de Chavignol. And I think that's a very good reproduction of croton. We have this capri note. I think in this one, I would struggle to being blind. I struggle
to tell the difference.
To show the difference, yeah.
Oh wow, that's good. That's good. If what Saint Ella and rosary goats are looking for. I mean, they've been making goat's cheese since 1988, so they're very experienced cheesemakers. But this is very new, so look out for it. It's called Saint Ella.
Just to mention, as some of you might remember some of the Academy of Cheese Level 1 content, we talk about the different type of rind, and one of them is the yeast rind, and the croton is a good example of a yeast rind development, which is this yeast is called geotrichum, and we will find this frog skin that we call because of the yeast development on the rind.
Super wrinkly. I mean, this San Loup has really got super wrinkles. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's very, very. You can taste it is much more creamy, the San Loup. So tell me, what do you do exciting with croton in the nicest possible way?
Sorry, I have to be very traditional.
That's fine.
Salade de chèvre chaud.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, goat cheese salad. You just bake some bread, and at the end of the baking, you put the croton so that it just can get a little bit melting under the rind, and you add it on top of salad lettuce with some cherries and nuts, walnuts, etc. I think that's.
Would you slice it down the cheese or into cubes, or
for a cheese board? I think the croton. A nice way to display it is to you cut it as a cake. You do
mini wedges,
camembert portion, and you just display them.
Yeah.
You just display them kind of in a circle. And the good thing to do on the cheese board, simple thing. I've got here tomato cherry. You cut it in quarter as well. Add it in the middle, and a drop of olive oil.
Oh.
And if you have some basil will remind a little bit the caprese salad style as well. That's a simple display on the board.
So before we go to questions, if anybody's got any, when I was working for the big cheese distributor Harvey and Brockless, I had to go over to Zurich and do support one of our customers over there, and we did like a consumer cheese market in Zurich town centre, and we took with us some Applebee's Cheshire and some Red Leicester, and we took some Black Sticks Blue. So these cheeses, the Swiss just could not get over the orange cheeses. So you've all seen Black Sticks Blue. I have never seen have so many people just say, "What is that cheese? What is it? What is it?" So obviously we had a tradition with the Cheshires and the Red Leicesters when they wanted to make using the annatto to make them look more, if it was made with the lesser great milk, the full fat milk, that would make it look, was it out of curiosity or disgust? That it would make it look like a richer cheese and they could sell it for more money back in the day. So it was out of curiosity, and once they tried it, they would just loved it and kept buying. They would just thought it was amazing because it's something that they've never seen before. So what I was asking Noemie is, what are there any, Black Sticks Blue, would the French just go, "Oh my gosh, what is that?" Or is there some cheese examples that they use the annatto in France?
Yeah. That's an interesting topic. We have some orangey curd tradition, and it mainly comes from the north of France. It comes from the area of Minories, where the workers used to have cheese because it was a big amount of protein and fat, very rich foods to have as they were working and taking their break. And also when you work in the minery, is that the way you say it? Minery?
The mines.
The mines, yeah. And so back in the time, they used to add to the curd some carrot juice to make it sweeter, because the mines made the throats of the workers very dry, and they used any sweetness as they could in the cheese production and in the food they had. And that's where the orange color comes from in cheese like the mimolette. At the beginning, the orange color was due to carrot juice, and then obviously as the production went bigger, it was changed for annatto. So now it's not carrot juice anymore. But this is where the orange color comes from, for the French cheese style. And
you wouldn't see it. I've never seen a French blue orange color.
You wouldn't see it in French blue. There are some variety of processed cheese where they will use some mimolette and they will melt it with other cheese. There is one called the boule d'Avenne, which is a mix of different cheese. It's kind of a Wensleydale style, where they mix these curds of mimolette and other orange cheese, but not in blue, not really in blue.
So we've got a question for you from Louisa, who says, "I live in France, in Paris, and it's great to hear that French and UK cheesemakers collaborate with each other. I'd be interested to hear Noemie's what it would take to equally convince French cheesemongers that there is good British cheese." Because yes, I've been in France many times in my camper van, and you can get Stilton, and obviously cheddar style, but
not much more.
Yeah, one British cheese I have seen without fail in French shops is Shropshire Blue. It's really popular. So they obviously do. Yeah, well, Shropshire Blue is lovely. I live in Shropshire, so not that it's made here. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know,
No, trying to convince them, aren't you?
this is my mission. This is why I came here. No, but you know, we say that our president, one of our president, Charles de Gaulle, said that it's very difficult to manage a country like France, where you have more variety of cheese than days in the year. So it shows how difficult is the country. But really, since I am in the UK, I've discovered so many different cheese style, variety, emulation, innovation, things that don't even exist, style that don't even exist in France. And that's true to say that we just know some of the cheese. If we're not into it, we will just know the cheddar, the Stilton, eventually the red Leicester. But there's much more to discover, and I think that's where the PDO is important as well, because it helps. We talked about it when we talk about French history and how other countries will look at French cheese style. The PDO makes the production bigger and more accessible to other countries. So I think in cheese like Baron Bigod, for example, or the Shropshire Blue that you mentioned, if you could have more communication around this cheese style, around how special it is because it's made where it's made, I think that would help the UK you know, cheese production to be more known. But I also think that what we're doing now, we should do it for French people as well. And I have done it. I worked in the development of you know, here in the UK, it's very famous to have cheese selection pack at Christmas and cheese board at Christmas that you just get ready to serve. And we in the product development team that I work with, we're trying to bring this concept to France as well. So and to bring more awareness about British cheese to France as well. So,
and with what with English cheeses, with British cheeses, or with
British cheeses?
Ah, fantastic!
Yeah,
Fantastic.
British cheeses, British pairing. You know, having some.
Well, we can all come over and help you convince them.
Yeah, I mean that's something you can add on the Academy of Cheese list.
Yes.
And there's the Mondial du Fromage every 2 years in France, in Tours and Loire-Vallée. And I think there's definitely something to do with the Academy of Cheese there to build this awareness. It's our mission as cheese educator. It's what we're doing in here. It's what I've been doing in South America. It's about not changing everything tomorrow, but building the future and building the awareness. So,
we've got a technical question for you from David. He's saying, why does Roquefort not develop a rind like most other blues?
It does develop a rind, meaning that Roquefort and blue style is the only style of cheese where the mold will develop from the center to the outside, but it will get to the outside. But the Roquefort cheese style is washed. The mold that's developed in the outside is then cleansed. There's a specific machine that will clean the mold, because the Roquefort identity is to not have mold on the rind. We want to avoid that. We want to keep the rind as clean as, and you can see that there's a slight pink color on the rind, and this pink color is actually the head of the mold that we yeah.
I haven't got any pink on mine. It's very clean.
Yeah, we can.
Forgot to say about the sheep's milk that it's very greeny blue veins as well.
Yeah.
Good girl, Louisa. Keep talking about the British cheese. Yes, please. Keep asking for it, and then they'll have to buy it. That's what they did with during British Cheese Weekend, which was when the lockdown started, and we were trying to rescue and make sure that the British cheesemakers survived. That there was that many people that went into Tesco's asking for Mrs. Kirkham's Lancashire that they had to stock it. They had to list it and stock it, and we were like, yay! So all power to the people if we keep asking for it. And Tori's saying, I would guess at David that this is due to very wet conditions of the curd. Yeah, so they're not purposely trying to dry out the rind. And Mrs. Bells Blue and the Shepherd's Purse Blues actually matured in the foil. So they actually use the foil to mature the cheese. I'm not sure. At Roquefort, is it just open wheels in the caves, or is it in foil or in any material?
Roquefort is 14 days open in the cave, and when it finishes the 14 days, it gets wrapped in a specific foil and bring to another maturation room to follow and go on. In total it's 90 days, so there's about 70 days and something under foil protection. Yeah.
Cool. David, do you want to undo your mic and ask Naomi the question?
Right. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so I was going to, sorry, I think I pressed it a little bit too early. Noemie, thank you very much for your presentation. It's been very enjoyable. If you were doing a dinner party, say, for example, or a presentation, and you were allowed 5 cheeses, would a British cheese make it onto your list of 5?
As a French or as Noemie Richard, or what's?
As Noemie Richard.
As Noemie Richard.
He's going to say yes.
I know you get hung if you did it in Paris, but just if you were doing it, from a purely personal point of view.
Yeah. What's your favourite English British cheese at the moment? I have taken Noemie before lockdown. We went to the cheese bars, Pick and Cheese, so their cheese conveyor belt in Covent Garden, which is British cheeses paired with perfect pairings of different foodstuffs, and it is awesome. The Mrs. Kirkham's Lancashire with the Eccles cake was my favourite, actually.
Yeah.
So favourite cheese? Come on, British cheese.
I have to say that I'm generally a big fan of blue cheese, and I think in the blue cheese British world, I'll definitely like to have a steel Chelton on my cheese board.
Okay.
I will definitely choose
The raw.
Yeah. Steel Chelton is a cheese I really like. And then I think we most of the time we compare the hard cheese from the mountain of France with any hard cheese in the UK. But for me, there's a very different worlds between a cheddar and a Comté, for example. I think they both have their place on a cheese board. I think the cheddar, the texture, the flavors is completely different than the Comté or the Beaufort. I would rather pick just one mountain French cheese and have a cheddar, obviously, ideally a vintage cheddar, farm production cheddar. The last I tasted is the Pitchford. Yeah.
Oh, it's very good. Yeah.
I think you can't choose between these two hard cheese styles. You have to have both on a cheese board. So yeah, I'll go for that as well.
Not a bit of mild block cheddar from Sainsbury's or Tesco's then?
Not if I have a special night.
Good for cooking with.
Yeah.
Good for the grandchildren. Okay, right. Well, we've done over an hour, chaps. So if you haven't got any more questions, I'll say thank you to Noemie, who's been amazing, and I hope
Thank you guys. Thank you very much for spending time with us.
I would just quickly say to you about the Academy of Cheese. Lots of you are already studying with us and or about to. If you haven't done your level 2, that's available only online at the moment as e-learning. I'm trying to persuade one of the training partners to do level 2 virtual courses, because that's all the courses we've got at the moment. But the exciting news is we're working very hard on level 3 and Master of Cheese, and we're going to start releasing the modules for level 3 and Master of Cheese in April next year. So you'll be able to do it in bite-sized chunks, excuse the pun, and sign up so it's not one big lump of learning or lump sum of money. You can do it slowly, and well, you can do it fast if you want, but there'll be lots of modules. And check out the website in a few days' time, because we're going to be putting up those information sheets about level 3 and Master of Cheese, which is the end goal, which is really exciting because that's what we've been working towards. But thank you ever so much to everybody. Thank you all for joining and being very, very excellent on the Zoom and the technology. I'm hoping the technology was fine. Tori, stay on. I want to talk to you. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're signing off, and have a good rest of evening.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Tracy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.